My name is Alex and I am 36 years old. If someone had asked me a few months ago if I was happy, I would have said yes without a doubt. My life looked like a perfect commercial. A prestigious job in an IT company that provided a stable income and allowed me to enjoy comfort. I worked in the center of Chicago, but lived in a cozy suburb where every house stood in the shade of large trees, and neighbors greeted each other as if we were all one big family. My wife Melissa has always been my pride. We got married 8 years ago. She was not just the love of my life, she was the one who supported me in the most difficult moments. Her energy and charisma attracted people. She worked as an interior designer. And her talent was so obvious that clients were lining up for her services. I looked at her and thought I was incredibly lucky. Our house in the suburbs was a dream come true. A spacious living room with large windows that flooded the room with sunlight, a kitchen where we cooked together on weekends, and a garden where we loved to drink our morning coffee. We often had guests over, neighbors, friends, and colleagues. One of the most frequent guests was our neighbor Tom. He lived across the street with his family and was a favorite of everyone on the street. Tom always seemed friendly, ready to help, and his friendship with us seemed natural, but the perfection of our life had another side. As an IT specialist, I worked a lot. Constant deadlines, conferences, and meetings left me no time to spend full days with Melissa. I reassured myself that I was doing it for us, for our future. Melissa never complained directly, but sometimes I could see sadness in her eyes. I thought it was just temporary, that things would change soon, and we would return to the days when we laughed together and planned vacations. On weekends, we often spent time with our neighbors. Our suburb resembled a perfect picture from a TV show: barbecues, evening gatherings with a glass of wine, talking about everyday things. Tom was the center of these meetings. His ability to make people laugh and support any topic made him a favorite. We got along well, too, and I thought more than once that he was the kind of neighbor you could only dream of. At that time, it never occurred to me that something else was hiding behind this picture of an ideal life. My happiness was fragile and my trust was blind. It was an ordinary weekday. I had come home early because of an accident at work, the servers went down, and nothing worked for the rest of the day. The rain was coming down on our suburb, and the air was filled with the feeling of an impending storm. When I entered the house, I heard voices coming from the bedroom. At first I thought it was Melissa on the phone. But when I went up the stairs, I realized that there were two voices. Melissa and someone else, a man's voice. I froze, my heart pounding. The bedroom door was open, and what I saw stopped time. Melissa was in Tom's arms, their faces pale when they saw me. "Alex, it's not what you think," she screamed, getting out of bed. I did not answer. Anger, pain, and shock overwhelmed me. Silently, without looking at them, I turned around and left. My perfect life shattered like glass. The next day, Melissa called me more than 20 times and left dozens of messages. At first I didn't want to listen to her, but after a few days I decided to give her a chance to explain herself. We agreed to meet at our favorite cafe. She came on time, dressed in a simple sweater and jeans, looking confused, her eyes red with tears. "It was a mistake," she began, almost in a whisper. "I don't know how it happened. Tom and I were drinking." I interrupted her. "Drinking? Is that your excuse?" She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Alex, listen. I was lonely," she said, her voice desperate. "You're always at work, and we haven't spent time together in a long time, and you decided to find company in our neighbor?" I replied bitterly. Melissa didn't say anything. Her words seemed to me to be an attempt to justify herself. I felt she was hiding something more, but I didn't want to hear another lie. Leaving her sitting in the cafe, I left, feeling the same emptiness again. When I returned home to get my things, I tried not to stay too long. All the memories of our life together seemed bitter. After quickly gathering my clothes and a few necessary things, I was about to leave when I noticed a letter on the kitchen table. it was an envelope signed only with Melissa's name. No addressee or stamps. Inside was a short but very disturbing text, all set. Meet me in Wisconsin. Just don't let Alex find out. I read it several times, trying to understand what these words meant. Who wrote this letter? And what kind of meeting? My heart was beating faster. I took a photo of the letter on my phone and left the envelope in place. Something in all this did not give me peace. It was no longer just a betrayal, it felt like something much more serious was involved. When I left the house, I decided that now I would find the truth, no matter how bitter it was. I needed help to understand the situation. The only person I could trust was Gina, an old friend of mine. She had once helped me solve a problem at work, and since then I knew she was a true professional. Gina worked as a private detective and was able to find answers even in the most confusing stories. I called her and briefly explained everything. We met at her office in the city center. The spacious room with thick blinds on the windows and a wall covered with maps and photos looked like a scene from a spy movie. Alex, this is more than just an affair, Gina said, looking carefully at the photo of the letter. If it involves money, meetings, and trying to hide something, then it's clearly not just an affair. We agreed that she would start following Melissa and Tom. Gina suggested checking their phone records, tracking their movements, and even trying to find more information about that mysterious meeting in Wisconsin. I'll do everything I can to get you the truth, she assured me. As Gina began her investigation, I felt hopeful for the first time that I would finally be able to put all the pieces of this strange story together. A few days later, Gina called me with the news, sounding excited. Alex, what I found is amazing. It's not just an affair, it's something much more serious. We met at her office and she gave me all the details. Gina followed Melissa and Tom to a small rental house on the outskirts of Wisconsin. They were meeting with some people there, and their conversations were about transferring and paying. They're organizing a jewelry smuggling operation, Gina explained. I checked out one of their partners. He is a petty criminal who has been convicted of similar crimes before, but the worst part was how they financed their operations. Gina found out that Melissa was using our joint bank account to transfer money to cover up her actions, so I was financing their crimes? I asked. Not believing my ears, Gina nodded. Unfortunately, yes. But we have time to fix it. I was shocked. What started as a simple betrayal had turned into a real crime thriller. But I decided to fight to the end to expose them and regain control of my life. I hung up the phone after talking to Gina and was left alone with my thoughts. Betrayal is one thing. But when you are involved in a crime, even if unknowingly, it is a completely different level. I felt anger and determination growing inside me. I had to get to the bottom of this situation. The next morning, Gina made an appointment to meet me at a cafe. She brought another person, a man who introduced himself as Marcus, a former federal agent. Alex, Marcus has connections in the FBI. If you want to expose Melissa and Tom, you need someone who can help you put the case in the right hands, Gina said, sitting down across from me. Marcus looked serious and composed, as if he was used to dealing with this kind of thing. We discussed the plan for a long time. It turned out that uncovering the smuggling scheme required more than just surveillance. We needed evidence, records, financial documents, and preferably a recorded transfer of jewelry. Marcus invited me to take part in a small operation, to infiltrate the house where they were meeting while Gina and her team were watching them. It was risky, but there would be no other chance. The next day, armed with a small camera and instructions from Gina, I arrived at the rented house in Wisconsin. I felt like the hero of a bad spy movie. My heart was pounding in my throat as I made my way to the back door. Luckily, the door was unlocked. The house was quiet, but there were documents, laptops, and a small safe lying around. I quickly took a picture of the papers on the table, including lists of jewelry and several invoices. And then I heard a car in front of the house. Melissa and Tom were on their way back. Melissa managed to escape. It was almost unbelievable, but she remained at large, leaving all the evidence and her accomplice at the mercy of the police. The next day, Gina received disturbing news: Melissa had probably left the state. Her last trail led to Canada. I began to analyze every detail. What was Melissa's real motive? A love triangle with Tom, or a desire for financial freedom? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe Tom was a victim too. A few weeks passed. Marcus and Gina continued to search for Melissa. I went back to work, trying to put my life back together. But one evening I received an anonymous call: "Alex, it's her. Meet me in 2 hours. An old hangar by the lake. Come alone." The woman's voice disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. I arrived at the designated place. Melissa was standing in the semi-darkened hangar. She looked exhausted, but her eyes had the same twinkle in them as always. "What do you want, Melissa?" I asked, trying to hide my excitement. "Everything I did for us, Alex." Her voice sounded bitter. "Tom was just a cover. And smuggling was a way to escape from the routine, from this perfect life. And you betrayed me. You used our money, our lives." Melissa shrugged. "You were busy with your work anyway. You didn't care about me." My response remained silent. At that moment, the hangar door burst open with a SWAT team. Marcus and Gina were taken into custody. A year passed. Melissa served her time in prison, and I finally started a new life. Gina and Marcus helped me get the money back, and Tom, having confessed to complicity, became a witness in the case against Melissa. Now I feel free, although the scars of what I went through remain. This story taught me that even the most perfect life can have cracks. But from every crack comes light. I managed to slip out the window, but I think something moved. The door to the room where I was working was ajar. If they noticed that someone had gotten in, the whole plan could fail. That evening, Gina received a signal that Melissa and Tom were on their way to another meeting. This time, their partner was to be a man named Jared, the petty criminal Gina had mentioned. Marcus and I followed them. When they arrived at the abandoned warehouse, Gina decided to act. Marcus led the team out, and they arrested Jared on the spot. Tom and Melissa, seeing this, tried to escape. Melissa got into the car, but Tom stayed behind, surrendering immediately. At the police station, I first encountered him after that scene in my bedroom. "It wasn't my idea, Alex," he said. "Melissa talked me into it. I didn't believe a word of it." But his words made me think. Was my wife really the one who initiated all this?